So I came home and I slid the heater core right back in the same way you saw me take the other one out. Put the other metal plate back on, 4 screws to hold it in place. While I had that heater out, I actually tipped it up so the motor was at the top, and I took a garden hose to it and I flushed out all the old antifreeze. Also had a couple of bug nests and a old yellow jacket nest in there, but we got that all cleaned out. So then comes time to put this thing back in. If you look at your dash and you look inside of the glove box, you can reach down inside, and down inside there's a bolt that holds this dash to the sidewall. And you want to go ahead and you want to pull that bottom bolt out, because you're going to want to be able to grab this thing and cheat a little bit and get the bottom of this thing out. And the bottom one's all you really got to pull, and it's easy to get to. So then you go ahead and you take your heater box and you slide it back in, and now you've got the motor and the nipples off the back of that new heater core facing that way, and you can reach in through the glove box and kind of guide it and kind of slide it back and forth and tug on this at the same time. It'd be a lot easier if you had 3 hands, or maybe 4, but that would make it tough to buy shirts, of course. So go ahead and slide that heater back up, and you line those nipples up with a hole and slide them through nice and easy, because they are aluminum, they're a little delicate. And you get the motor, grab the wires off the back of the motor, get them through the hole, and then you can go ahead and position that thing up. Then the first thing you want to do is come around and make sure that you got your wires in the right place. And these 2 bolts right here are going to be sticking through, at least they should be. You can grab that motor and get those 2 nuts on there, and that'll hold it in place. And it leaves that other one back over in the middle of the engine as the difficult one. And so now you're going to have to lay on your back on the seat and reach up there and try to line that bolt up with that hole. And the hard part's to see the hole. It helps a lot if you have your wife's hand mirror, or if you are the wife, your hand mirror that's in your bathroom that you look at the back of your head with. And then you go ahead and come around and take a long skinny piece of dowel and stick it through that hole. And then when you're laying on your back with a mirror, you can look up behind that box and kind of line that up. Once you get those lined up, then you come around, pull the stick out, get that bolt through, and then, in my case, 4-wheel drive, you stand on a box and screw the nut on that thing, and then you take your socket and tighten it up, and boy, you're well on your way to having this thing back in. Then remember to attach your ground to the wall, and then this plugs back in. Those are the only connections you did. Okay, now you've got your old heater hoses unplugged and off to the side. So go ahead and pull those hose clamps. You're going to get a little bit out of it. Be prepared to stick the new hose on here. Just take that 7-foot length of hose, cut it in half. Both of them are going to be a little too long. And you go ahead and you loosen your clamp. Now, these down here aren't delicate at all. You can just grab that thing and pull it off of there. But usually I go ahead and I tighten or loosen those clamps up. I slide the clamp up out of the way, and I just take a razor knife and I cut the side of those things. Now, those are heavy steel. You're not going to hurt anything by cutting those things off. Then you go ahead and you slide the new one on. Then go ahead and do this back one first so you can get to the screw easier, and then do the front one, slide the second one on, put the hose clamp on, tighten them up, then bring them up, kind of gauge it so you've got the right amount of slack in it, trim them, slide your clamps onto them, push your hoses on there, nice and easy. Mine, the hole in the firewall was big enough that I could slide the hose all the way on there, and it actually made a nice little rubber barrier between the firewall and those aluminum nipples. So see, I can go like that, and I can go like that, and that's actually moving that heater core around in there just a tiny bit. And the other one seemed to be in there a little snugger, but I don't know, works good. Then go back, top off your radiator fluid, because you will have lost quite a bit, because that radiator obviously sits a little taller than these connections down here. So as soon as you go to pull it off, then some of this is going to try to drain back. In my case, I'd had a bad enough leak that my radiator was down about a gallon, so I didn't have much leaking underneath. So maybe a catch pan underneath. I've got this half a garbage can looking thing that I use to haul stuff around in, and I used it as a catch pan. You don't want to leave antifreeze laying around. Cats and dogs will drink that and it'll kill them. It wipes out their liver. And if you like your animals, that's not a good deal. It's a slow, painful death. Okay, so now we've got it in. We've got it bolted up. This little thing goes back on. It clips on in the back, and then it's got these little push pins. And then we put the vent back up in there. 2 screws on the bottom, 2 screws on the top. Then it's time to go ahead and hook up those cables. I thought to myself, I got the one cable that turns the heat on and off, and you've got the other cable that switches it to defrost and down to the bottom. And those have a single screw that hold them on. You know how that comes off because you're the guy that took it off. But when you go ahead and put it back on, I would suggest before you slide this thing back up, attach this left cable, because it's really tough to get to once you put this thing back in. And I mean, you can do it with a stubby screwdriver, but it'd be a lot more fun to just go ahead and attach this left cable on before you slide this thing all back up into place. So once you get your cables attached, get that on, then I would suggest you go ahead and start it, run it, add some antifreeze obviously, start it, run it, and make sure you don't have any leaks before you finish putting everything back together. You don't have any leaks, work your controls, make sure your controls are adjusted right, so everything's working the way it should. And then it's time to put your glove box liner back in. The liner goes in with 4 screws. It's time to put your door back in, 4 screws. You took it out, you know how it comes out. And in my case, it worked. Hoses and all ran me about 40 bucks. And if I would have taken it down to my local shop, my local mechanic would have charged me a couple of $100. And I got the good feeling now that I can drive down the road without smelling antifreeze. And I hope this works for you. It certainly did for me. This is my first YouTube video. And I know I had radio playing in the background, and I didn't have very good camera. I probably should have had somebody else filming it, or I should have been using a tripod. But you know, you want to make comments, go ahead. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I was a fireman for 27 years, and anybody could hurt my feeling. They're going to have to find it first. Good luck to you.